Follow John Keim on Twitter if you're not already, at John_Keim, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering the Skins, of course. John, Eytan Shander in for Mike Gill. It's the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Thank you for the time. I'm sure that there's been a lot of turmoil going on with personnel moves and reports about who's fired and who's back. And all of that said, there's still a football game, and I'm curious, how much is on the minds of the players that there is a legit chance of spoiling the Philadelphia Eagles, especially with what they did last year, winning the Super Bowl and all that magic crap with Nick Foles?
I mean, you hear that, and there are certain guys that I believe that it matters to them. A guy like Jonathan Allen, played at Alabama, second-year defensive lineman, very, very good player, passionately cares about winning. So I believe there are some guys that it matters to. I also believe there are a lot of guys who are just saying it because, well, it's what they need to say. And, last year at this time, they went into their last game against the Giants 7-8, and the big talk was, well, get to 8-8. We don't want to lose in season. Get to 8-8. And then after the first, Orleans Darkwa had like a 75-yard touchdown run, and before he crossed midfield, you could just see the Redskins say, oh, well, maybe 7-9's okay too. So, I don't know that it's going to be – I mean, I know, like I said, I think some guys will definitely – I think you have a lot of guys who want to play hard. Josh Johnson means a lot to him because he gets another chance. Guys like that. But overall, I think a lot of guys are probably ready and they're exhausted by this season and ready for it to be over.
Before we get to all the themes surrounding the team and maybe even leading into this game, just on the field, your opinion, looking at it from the D.C. Skins side of it, where do you give Washington any advantage? And if they do have one, do you actually see that as a way that they can win this football game?
No, not really.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean, I do think their defense is capable of doing certain things, but I think what they need defensively is for the offense to control the ball. They did that fairly well against Tennessee last week, and it gave them a shot on the road against a quality team. So I think if they can do that, then they have a shot. And I think, a guy like Adrian Peterson is going to play a certain way regardless. So he's not going to let up. I mean, this matters to him still. I think there are enough guys on defense that it matters to, that if you can get some momentum going, that, you can see them sticking around for a little while. But, I don't know that I'd say – I think, like I said, I like their defensive line a lot. And I think that's where they have, whether it's an edge or an advantage, that's where they have a plus, and that's where their strength is. So I think – and those guys are all young, and I think they'll play a certain way. So I think that's where they could give the Eagles a little bit of trouble. But overall, it's just hard to see them having any sort of – shoot, they may not even have the home field advantage. I mean, I'm expecting, a lot of Eagles fans there.
You read my mind, John. We're speaking with John Keim, at John_Keim, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering the Skins. We were having this conversation earlier in the week, and we were trying to figure out, normally, as you know, the Eagles crowd, Philadelphia seems to travel really well in D.C., and the Eagles crowd is no exception. Now you add the level of importance, like, hey, there could be a playoff level of importance added to it. Could be the last time we see Nick Foles in a jersey, Darren Sproles in a jersey. So, John, we were thinking somewhere around like 70-75% Eagles fans. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah. I think that's definitely possible. I don't know. I was thinking at least 60-65, but I can definitely see a scenario where it gets to 70-75% because there are a lot of fans. It's not the added thing here from a Washington standpoint is that there are a lot of fans who are just angry with the franchise. You see, like if you went on Redskins Twitter right now, the Redskins official feed, they tweeted out like some nice interview that Josh Johnson had done. Underneath the mentions are all hashtag fire Bruce Allen, hashtag everyone must go. They are bitter. So I think that adds to this as well. So it's not like this is a team that they dearly love and just going to go, they fought hard. Let's go watch it one more time. It's a team that people are really mad at. It's a franchise that it's a franchise that they're mad at. They're mad at Dan Snyder. They're mad at the team president, Bruce Allen. So I think you add that in there, and it's another reason why I can see people just saying it's just not worth the effort. And it's a fan base it's a passionate fan base that feels burned and battered.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to put it, especially for us where we've felt that way before, those two ways specifically, and knowing those two things at once is not fun by any means. What is there that you can look at with this game, and not momentum or incentive to win, but just to build on as far as, quarterback might be out, but where are they looking to actually get some sort of positive to continue to build on moving forward? Because at 7-8, John, it's not like they're even as bad as the Giants record-wise if they finish 7-9 and at the top of the draft board.
No, and I think here's the thing. They were 6-3 and in 2 games ahead in the division when Alex Smith got hurt. And when you talk to guys in the locker room, that was a turning point in the season. And it's not like he was playing some Pro Bowl level. It's just the influence he had in the locker room and the huddle and how players felt with him on the field. And he allowed them to play a certain way offensively because of what he could do. So, that's where, so they were headed toward, you could have made the case that, they're going to win 10 games. That's what they look like they could do. And so, is that the same team that they can come back next year? If they, that you look at their line play on defense, it's really good and it's very young. There's where some of the hope is. But on offense, you're going to have to not rebuild the line, you have to repair the line. They have a very good guard, Brand Sheriff, hasn't played in a while because of injuries, and he's out for the year. But then the question is, and I think if we knew Alex Smith was coming back next year, I think you could look at it and say, well, you get this group back next year, and they had, some sort of speed playmaker on offense. Then you say, you know what, they could be right back where they were. The problem is we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. We don't know what's going to look like at quarterback. I think that complicates the future. And I think that's where the hard part is for this franchise. Alex Smith would be a prohibitive guy in cost to cut. So you can't really do that. So you have to carry him on the roster. So now what do you do at quarterback? Because if I had to guess right now, I'd say he's not going to play next year. Or at the very least, it's going to be a long time before he gets back. So what do? You don't have the cap room to go out and necessarily sign somebody. You're going to have to draft somebody, but are you really in position with your pick to do that? So I think there's some questions there moving forward. I think if they can get that solved in a good way, then they can go back to being what they were last year because all the talent would still be there. But short of that, we just don't. You don't know. You don't know what this future looks like at that position, and it's a pretty big position to have an unknown at.
All right, John, I want you to take your time on this one and go any direction you want. What was the best single moment of dysfunction all year that best represents how dysfunctional this organization is right now?
Can I just say December?
I mean, sure. You can take it any way you want.
Yeah, it's. I don't even know if there's a single moment. I think there's a quote like, Josh Johnson's the quote of the year, or not quote of the year, but the quote that sums up the season is, he learned his teammates by playing Madden.
Yes.
But and I think, I don't know. I think DJ Swearinger after the game the other day was probably summed it all up because he went further than anybody would have expected, ripping the coordinator Greg Minuski, and then was released 2 days later. But my God, I mean, that came after, a safety gets involved in a fight that's on video and he's placed on he's out for the year. And then then there was Reuben Foster being claimed and it turned into a 4-day story and they're apologizing for what they said. And, it was like one thing after another. And then you throw in the injuries, you throw in Zach Brown saying a couple things or missing some practice because of quote unquote illnesses and whatever. So it's been a bizarre stretch even for this franchise.
You know what, though? I bet not a boring day at all for you and others down there covering the team. Could be worse.
Listen, it could be a lot worse. And if the worst part of my life is covering a guy who gets, who says something crazy, well, then that's okay. But I will say this. I had an unbelievable streak of sitting there thinking, boy, today seems to be going okay. Yes. And then it's like, well, no, it's not anymore. So don't ever think that again. So, it's December in Washington, man.
As you're laying it out, I'm thinking of the signs on the workhouse, the factories, and workplaces where 0 or 2 days without incident, and it's probably 0 days without dysfunction every single day. You can't even get a good clock.
No, and the funny thing is, like, for most of the year, you're kind of thinking, man, this is going pretty smoothly. They're 6-3. There's no issues. Right. There's no this. There's no that. And then it's just like you feel like you got to the 6th round of a prize fight, and you're just like, oh, and you let your hands down a little bit, and you're just, next thing you know, after round 10, you're getting up and you're pulling yourself up off the ropes, and your nose is bleeding, your cheeks, your eyes are all puffed up. That's how it feels like after a while, because it's like boom, boom, boom.
It's amazing. Great way to put it, John Keim, at John_Keim, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering the Skins. This was great, man. I look forward to chatting again down the line. Thanks for coming on, and good stuff, too, all around, and really funny as well. Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot for having me on, guys.